A musical moment from the band Balmorhea live here in our Soundcheck studio. That's the title track from the band's most recent album called Clear Language. And it featured the sextet performing here in the studio. I'll go around the room. Rob Lowe on keyboards, Michael Muller on guitars, Aisha Burns on violin, Jeff Olson playing the vibraphone, briefly bowing the vibraphone at the beginning of that song. Sam Pankey on the bass, and Nick Soberon on the cello. Rob, you and Michael formed this band initially a little over a decade ago, right?
That's right. Yeah, a long time ago.
What was the idea? I mean, did you set out to form a not rock band?
I think that, when we started, it's kind of hard to even think back 10 years ago. Mike and I both had been working on some music. I was still in college. It was really quiet music, and I think when we met and became friends, we realized that we shared a lot of interests of music that was going on at the time, really kind of not mainstream stuff at all. And we had no idea what we were doing. We didn't know how to make a record. We didn't know how to release a record. You know, we just knew that we liked playing music together. So we both kind of combined our ideas and recorded this little record on our computer in our house and just made this thing. And, that was kind of the start. We had no idea what was going on, but we knew that we wanted to make these quiet little songs. So it kind of grew out of that.
And Michael, were you guys listening at the time to bands like Rachel's, the Louisville?
Wow, that's the number one inspiration, I think, as a cumulative kind of effort. Yeah, that was really inspirational for us.
It was right around that time that they were playing their final concert,
Exactly.
Which was actually one of my concerts here in New York from the New Sounds Live concert series. They didn't know it. I didn't know it, but it turned out to be their final.
Where was that?
At Merkin Hall, just a block from Lincoln Center.
Yeah, I saw them at UT in Austin. It probably was on the same tour then, right before that.
Yeah.
And it was really influential for me.
And, as we did with the band Rachel's and are doing for you guys today, we have you mic'd up as if you're a rock band, but we also have, a kind of a stereo pair as if you're a chamber music ensemble, because you're kind of both.
Sure. Yeah.
Even with the amplified instruments, there's a sense of that kind of elegant interplay of line that you get in a chamber music setting. There's also, I use the word a musical moment rather than a song. There's also that kind of Brian Eno aspect where, it's not foreground and background. It's just one kind of sonic palette.
Yeah, I think on this record in particular, it was very much built around these loops that we were working on, and if I think back to our previous album Stranger, it was much more of like a kind of conventional pop song structure, even if they don't read that way.
Right.
But this one is I think Brian Eno is a huge influence on us, obviously, and probably most specifically on this record than any of our records, because it is this kind of like cycling. There's a lot of counterpoint in there, things that come and go and don't really change all at once. They just kind of move over time.
Right. And although you are an instrumental band, it doesn't mean you're a completely vocalless band.
Lyricless, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Lyricless. But the voice as an instrument is part of that interplay as well. So is there an element of irony to the title, Clear Language, on a record that has no spoken language whatsoever?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that we kind of thought the music needed to speak for itself in its own way, and it's a way that's not with voice, and it's a way that's not with any modern technology. It's like a primitive way of reaching someone on a different level.
Yeah.
I think I think that it's definitely, I mean, it's not meant to read as ironic, but it is meant to kind of point to the fact that there's a lot of different ways to communicate, and music for us it's kind of like works at this deeper level, and it can kind of move you in a different way.
In a sense, it is a very direct language that gets, which is why, people from different cultures can respond to each other's music.
Exactly.
You don't need the language, the spoken language.
And it's difficult to name, an instrumental project. I mean,
Yeah.
we make all this music, and then at the end, you're like, okay, well, we got to call it something. And sometimes that comes earlier in the process.
And you chose to call it Balmorhea, or as I've been saying over the years, Balmorhea, and I'm sure I am not the only one.
No, you're not.
So, what is that? Is it a town name in Texas?
Yeah, it's a town. So I grew up in a town called Midland in West Texas, out in the desert. And this is a little town, Balmorhea. It's about 2 hours drive from where I lived, and there's a big natural spring there.
Yeah.
It's a state park. It was built in the 30s during the WPA, and so I would go there as a kid always. It's basically an oasis in the middle of a desert. So it's a special
nice
place
image.
to me. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that when we were first starting out, we took a trip there and went swimming, and
Yeah.
we were like, well, this seems to fit the thing that we're trying to express musically.
And nobody had trouble with the name.
Well, everybody
Cued you into the fact that Balmorhea might not be.
There was no one to cue us in at that point. It was literally just Mike and I and like the handful of people that were our friends that had all been to that place, so they knew how it was pronounced.
Okay.
Setting ourselves up.
It's a good talking point, though.
Well, I suppose you could have just spelled it phonetically, and that would have taken care. You didn't have to spell it exactly the way the town does. But
like I said, we had no idea what we were doing.
Let's go back in time.
Okay, I'm done belaboring the point. The band is called Balmorhea. Their latest album is called Clear Language. Playing in Brooklyn tonight
That's
at
right.
Littlefields. Playing for us here in our studio today. I really like this next piece called Sky Could Undress. Shall we hear another live performance?
Let's do it.
Is there instrument switching that has to happen right now?
For real, yeah. A lot of it.
Okay. A lot of it, okay. Once again, the band Balmorhea from Texas here in our New York studio. Clear Language, the name of their latest release, and playing at Littlefields in Brooklyn tonight, but playing for us here in the Soundcheck studio today. Let's hear another excerpt called Sky Could Undress. Once again, the band Balmorhea live here in our New York studio with a song called Sky Could Undress. It is from their latest record called Clear Language. Another instrumental soundscape in the Soundcheck studio. And Michael, Rob was saying before about how when the band started, it wasn't a big idea. It was actually a very small idea. Just a couple of friends playing quiet music together. How has the band changed over the years? And I guess the critical part of that question would be, how has the band changed in the last 5 years since the preceding record?
I think we're on this trajectory of adding, we kind of outgrew just the piano, guitar, and field recordings. We added a cello. Then Aisha joined us, and we were a quartet for a long time. And then we added the lower end of the double bass. And then, so we were kind of in that acoustic chamber music ensemble for a while. And then, we invited electric guitars and electric bass into the mix, and then slowly synthesizers, and it was at this maximalist point in 2012 with Stranger. And we toured really hard on that for a couple years and kind of exhausted that kind of feeling and writing for that ensemble, and we kind of took some time away and kind of stripped it back and kind of wanted to have a little more restraint, a little more space, and allow more breath, and especially in such a chaotic and hectic time.
I was just thinking that we really need that kind of space and room to breathe and that sort of thing. So what has the writing process changed? I mean, is this notated music? You've got instruments like the violin and cello that are used to reading notated scores.
Yeah. No, nothing. I mean, we have had to notate some things in the past, but really it's all done by ear. And every record has been a bit of a different process. This most recent one, Clear Language, Mike and I, like you said, we needed to take a nice long break and come back to the project. I mean, 10 years is a long time to do anything, so when we did decide, okay, let's start working, we just were like, we're going to do it just the two of us, and we're going to put no limitations on basically the ensemble, right? Like, we didn't want to write for 3 strings and guitars and have to have a drum beat in there too, so we just kind of went with it, the two of us, and that's why I think a lot of it ended up being more these kind of loop-based things, because we were just working in our studio. And but yeah, we just kind of worked until it was done, and then Aisha came in on this record and added her violin, and she played some viola, but yeah, it was really kind of a very laid back, with no deadlines.
And so creating like loops in the studio, is that sort of the beginning of the process? You wait to catch something that you say, oh, that right there, that's a keeper, let's work with that.
Yeah, so either on piano or Rhodes or guitar, we would just make up these kind of riffs, I guess you would call them, and just put it on repeat and pull out things from the shelves and tape delays and keyboards and anything we could find, and just kind of what fit the best and what felt right to us.
But sometimes it's the complete opposite of that. Like there's a solo piano piece on the record that I worked on over the course of a year, and I just it took a long time to write that. And then Mike will have like a fully developed song that he'll bring to me, and I'll we'll work on it together. So it's not so much a specific process as it is chasing a certain, I don't know, feeling, and that can come in a lot of different ways.
It used to be in the music business that everybody complained about genres, but they were very handy things to have, because that's how people knew where to find you.
Right.
Have we gotten beyond that now? I mean, here you are kind of working beyond genre, and yet people have found you and continue to find you.
Post-genre, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you guys are kind of post everything, aren't you? It's like
I think it's really great, but it can still even be difficult for a band like this, because I think people, on first glance, you want to categorize something and say, this fits into this is chamber music, or this is folk music. It fits into a certain tradition, and for whatever reason, our music is drawing from a very large well of inspiration. And so I think sometimes still people they're kind of like, oh, what is it? Is it? I think it can be difficult. But that's what it is, and I think that we're proud of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's not rock, It's not minimalist. It's not
But it
chamber
can
music.
be both of those things.
But it could be
at
post.
times.
Yeah, it could be
Right.
post all of those things.
Yeah.
So it also has seems to have a sense of the spaces of the American West. Is there? Do you see this as a particularly American kind of music?
I think so. I mean, we both grew up in Texas. Mike grew up sometime in California, and that's where we're from. It's hard, I grew up in the desert of West Texas, and it's hard to not, I think, have those types of spaces kind of
and
come
maybe
into what you do.
maybe more in this record, where, as Michael was saying, you did leave space. Whereas in Stranger, there was lots of stuff filling the space.
Right. And in a lot of ways, Stranger was, we had been making some really bucolic and kind of music like that. But then at the same time, we live in cities. I live in Austin, and I come to New York, and I go to LA, and I'm an urban person. So it was also kind of like, well, let's try to reflect that a little bit in our music as well.
Now, when you go to LA and you tell people, yeah, my name's Rob Lowe. What kind of
same with the mispronunciation of our band name. It's a constant joke. The other Rob Lowe.
All right. The band is Balmorhea. The album's called Clear Language. We have another piece that you guys are going to do for us. And once again, will this be musical chairs in terms of instrumentation?
Yes.
All right. So
Absolutely.
let me give you guys a chance to reconfigure there.
Cool.
The piece is called Behind the World, and it comes from the album called Clear Language by Balmorhea. Once again, they are playing tonight. It's the last night of their tour at Littlefield in Brooklyn. I think I said Littlefield's plural. There's just the one Littlefield in Brooklyn, and that's where they will be this evening. Today they're playing for us live here in the Soundcheck studio, and here's another excerpt of music from Balmorhea. A final live performance here in the Soundcheck studio from the Texas band Balmorhea here in our New York studio on Soundcheck with a piece called Behind the World. The latest album by the band is called Clear Language. Rob, it is the first record by the band in 5 years.
Right.
So what happens next?
Well,
we're not going to wait another 5 years.
I don't think so. No, I think that we have a good idea of where we want to go from here. So it's kind of, I think we'll be working on some new music over the course of this winter. We're going to do some more shows next year. We're going to Mexico City. We'll do some more in Texas, and then we're hoping to get over to the EU in the spring. But all the while, we'll be working on new music and may even have some new songs to perform at those shows.
Great. Well, it's long overdue. Clear Language, the latest from Balmorhea. Guys, thank you so much for coming in and playing for us.
Yeah,
It's been
really.
great
Thanks
fun.
a lot for having us. This is great.